Hello, today I'm presenting a review of global environmental scenarios in the perspective of national bioeconomy planning for the advancement of LCA method. For national bioeconomy planning, we need to know when, what, and how much biomass sources and services are needed. And since these plannings and investments are long-term, future-oriented life cycle assessment can be beneficial. For this prospective LCA, we consider multiple global background features like these instead of having just one projection to increase robustness under high uncertainty. We review with these well-known global scenarios like SSPs and reports from IEA, JRC, OECD, and World Economic Forum and FAO. Also, we include an intelligence report for comparison. We want to crunch and debunk these scenarios to understand what are their assumed and perceived key variables and the causal relationship, what's considered and what's not considered. So we created one causal map for each study to understand the system perceived by the studies, like this. Following the green circles from the bottom, carbon tax goes up and then the livestock numbers can go down. So this is a negative relationship shown by blue line. But when the livestock numbers go up, GHG emission goes up, so this is a positive relationship shown by red arrow. And these are the causal maps from different studies, and you can see that they look very different. Then we put together all the diagrams into one table, so one arrow becomes one cell. When consumer awareness goes up, the human health goes up, so this is a positive relationship and the cell is colored in red. And two studies, WEF and FAO studies mention it, those are written there. And we also sorted the table so that only the variables with the most connections are shown here. So the top 10 causal variables are on the rows, and the top 10 resulting variables are on the column. Our finding is that there's hardly any feedback loops from the nature to human society, like climate change and biodiversity loss impact to the human socioeconomic factors. Those are not considered often. Also, shocks and disruptions like the pandemic we're having now are hardly considered. The intelligence report considered them with importance, but no environmental scenarios do. However, we know that these events can cause huge disruptions to the supply chain and lifestyle, to which bioeconomy is very dependent on. With trade, we also see that most scenarios assume that globalization leads to increase of sustainability. But is this also true all the time? There are studies showing that globalization can contribute to biodiversity loss and/or increased emissions. The studies also commonly assume that local movement only occur under global conflict, which is questionable. With economic growth, the GDP is almost always growing, or if there's a decrease, it's a collapse or a recession. But can we have a sustainable world with or without GDP growth? And of course, there's limited representation of biomass supply and demand, especially considering how much it can be dependent on shocks, disruptions, and the complexity of trade. We are now working on the paper to be submitted soon. Thank you very much for your attention.